Well, it still has its challenges, but because many more Asians, and not just the big cities, but also throughout the country, it's much better now. The exposure of Asians to Caucasian or even African Americans is much better now. But growing up in a small town, very small town, it was difficult, definitely, and it was, yeah, it was the first time I knew what racism was from a very early age, and I don't think I knew the term racism, because my parents, being immigrants, my mother came from East Timor, and my father from Taiwan, and they both went to undergraduate school in Taiwan. They didn't meet there yet, but then they got scholarships to study in the U.S. So they both got scholarships to study at Syracuse University in New York, and that's where they met. They actually met in New York. So I don't think they even knew the term racism. You know, I don't even know what it is in Chinese, actually, the Mandarin word for racism. So I think they studied hard, and of course, as always happens with Asian communities, they definitely had a kind of social group of other Chinese, Taiwanese, kind of mixed, I think many Asians, and from Syracuse, from that university. So I think that was their way of feeling comfortable. But they had wonderful mentors who were definitely Caucasian, and professors, you know, who dearly loved them and kind of were family to them. So when my dad got a job at Caterpillar, which is big tractor company in the world, and so he moved to Illinois, which is where I was born. So this is Midwest America, and we were in a small town just north of Peoria, which is a bigger city, and quite a well-known city in the middle of America. And it was actually very famous for being a kind of normal American town. So they'll say something like, for businesses, you know, if they have a new product, they say, well, will it play in Peoria? And so if it's successful in Peoria, that means it will be successful for the whole country. That's kind of the reputation that my city had. So, but I was in a small town, like farm town, basically, just north of Peoria, and maybe 800 people, you know, legally who were in that town, and mostly white Americans, but there are a few African American communities, but in my school there were only like 2 African Americans, you know, in my high school, and maybe a few Asians. You know, in my grade school, I remember, same age as me, there was a girl from Korea, actually. Her mother was Korean, and I assume her father was also Korean. But her name was Susan, and she still had an accent, a slight accent. And the kids, they were so mean to her. And because her mom, I guess she called her, the way that they heard was Sushan. Even though her name was Susan, but the mother would call her Sushan, Sushan, like that. And you know, our classmates, as young kids, are very mean. Actually, they would say, Sushan, Sushan, you know, and they would just make fun of her. And I would always defend her, you know, and I don't know what I would say, but I would say, you know, her mom's from another, I can't remember how but I defended her. And then there came a time, like in 6th grade, when, like, I had a best friend who lived on my neighborhood, who was white, American, and it was fine, seemed fine through grade school, but then suddenly, like 5th or 6th grade, like everyone turned against me. And I think the big reason was because I was like very good student and kind of teacher's pet. So, and I was already doing music and playing music. So the kids, I guess, were jealous. And so I remember, like, yeah, people calling me names on the bus, like chink, which is a derogatory, racist, label, and doing things like Chinese eyes, and yeah. So when he called me a chink on the bus, I remember being hurt a lot, and I came home and I was crying to my mom, and my mom said something like, don't worry about them. They're not going to go anywhere in life. You have a bright future and blah, blah, blah. And at that time, music was so important to me. And it was, I think, my salvation, actually. Because in my ballet classes, I was a good dancer. So, if you're good, then you're popular, that kind of thing. So at least in my art circle, like, I was accepted and respected. And in my orchestra also, I was the first chair. And then, yeah, I had confidence. It really helped me with my confidence at that time, which I really needed. And again, at that time, I was really trying to be like everyone else, actually. Like, in terms of accent, I was trying to not have any accent, because my parents definitely had strong accents, but I just tried to blend. I tried to be American, assimilate, as we say, and I even forgot, like, I would call Chinese people them. I would say they, and I wouldn't include myself. So it was a little bit of a crisis. Looking back, I had kind of an identity crisis, and luckily I had music to help me gain confidence, personal confidence, and so I think from high school, I was still getting racist things like I won my spelling bee and everyone booed. I was like, boo, It's like, and but at that time I was like, I don't care, I had my eyes set on a bright future, so so I was kind of like, I would kind of turn it against them. So I realized I can, instead of reacting the way that they wanted me to react, which is like hurt or, I would just turn it around. So yeah, I think that was a very key time of gaining independence and confidence and being clever, and also that built my great desire to really go after racism and stereotypes, and so that's the foundation really of why I do my music, is to build understanding and connection, and because I was positive if you have personal contact with another race, like if you become friends and find common things, then that will kind of solve any racist preconceptions, so it's that personal thing, that's the key. So when I went back to Taiwan after college, so like 2003, I went back to Taiwan, and I'd only been to Taiwan when I was like 6 or 7 with my family. We went as a small child, and but I chose to go back as an adult. So I was already, how old was I? 25, I think, when I went back. And this was to search for traditional music. So that was the beginning of my vision for what I wanted to do as an artist. And before that, I was just trying to be like a jazz singer, like trying to sing like the African American singers that I loved, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, and Billie Holiday. But then some mentors that I met, also jazz musicians, but Asian jazz musicians, Asian American jazz musicians, they really encouraged me to look into my roots for my artistic expression, because even then I was also singing a lot of salsa, and I knew Spanish. I could speak Spanish then. I still can, it's a little rusty, but... So I was like the front woman for... I was singing salsa songs from Cuba, Puerto Rico, and and I loved it, and people loved it because it was exotic, but my mentor said, if you just do that, then you'll just be known as a Chinese girl who sings Cuban music, there's nothing really original there. So yeah, so I went to Taiwan to seek my roots, and I went to Taiwan because it's closer than East Timor. So East Timor was so far for me, and also at that time my mom didn't think it was safe, and it turns out in 2006 there was a big conflict and there was a lot of killing, yeah, if you remember. But so anyway, so I just went to Taiwan, and that was, yeah, the beginning of this long journey. And yeah, so in Taiwan, I realized they're very racist also, actually, against African Americans. So, my relatives, whom I loved, my fourth grand uncle, I guess you say, my grand uncle, and that generation, they once said, because they asked about my brother, is he married yet, and this kind of thing. And I said, not yet, And they said, well, and my third grand uncle, he said, I give you advice, don't marry a black woman. He was saying that advice to my brother, and I was like, and all the relatives younger, they were like, so embarrassed, it's so racist, outwardly racist. But really it's because there's still so little exposure to African American people in Taiwan. There's only in Taipei, really, are there many, some African American students from abroad. But in general, if you look, so few. So it's just this lack of personal contact and fear. So fear builds out of not knowing, that it comes from not knowing and the unknown. So my whole concept is, if there's just one personal contact, you realize we're just all the same, And anyway, so that's... It's true. It's very hard for people to tell. So in general, if anyone looks Asian, they just think Chinese. In general, it's still difficult. Even for me, actually, sometimes Japanese or Korean, difficult for me. So I don't want to blame, Caucasian Americans or, non-Asians. I don't want to blame them for not being able to tell the difference, and that is quite difficult, But there was an assumption, sure, that generally, I think, there's different. I think the main Asian races that Americans tend to categorize are Chinese and Japanese, because of the migration, and the work, the railroads, and also the Japanese that came to America. So they're kind of those two big races, and there were stigmas against both at the beginning. So especially after World War II, the anti-Japanese sentiment was so strong. And anyway, many terrible things happened. But so it's funny how it's, so if someone were to see you, Indonesian is not the first Asian race that comes to mind. So there's still much to be learned, I think. And you'll find the big cities, they know much more. People are more aware. But in the middle of the country. So it's kind of West and East Coast, very open-minded, and certain in Chicago, Austin, some key cities inside, but in general, like the countryside, cornfields, there's still a lot of ignorance, I feel. And then people even say to me many times, like, your English is so good, like this, It's like, yes, I was born here, I'm American. So it still happens. So I before I was very angry. I would get angry and offended, but I realized that's not helpful. What's helpful is to befriend, to become friends with the person who is ignorant, and educate them. Just make them realize, So I think it's just ignorance that causes these conflicts. Sure, in general, again, now I'm stereotyping, but at least in my family, because they are immigrant, my parents, immigrant parents, so they really wanted us to succeed. And so that, the kind of stereotype of pushy parents, of our generation, very demanding and very, they had high ambitions for their children. It's generally true. So my parents really, they just really wanted us to be successful and wanted us to speak English perfectly, which they believed would be our path to success because we have no accent, So that was for them our doorway to being successful. So, many of my family friends, like the other Asians in the community, all the kids took music lessons. All of them were doing math competitions and scoring high SATs. So there's a big push because it's like you're the first generation. You're the second generation. You were born in America, so they sacrificed so much for us. The fact that they left their home country just to come to America and start a new life with no family or friends, that's incredible. And that sacrifice is a deep sacrifice, So that kind of, like, we did all this for you, and so you have to study hard, and because of the racial, the prejudice, natural prejudice at that time, that means we have to do extra well. We have to do the best. We can't just get normal grades, because if we're compared with white Americans, they're going to get the benefits. People will choose them more, if the employers are also still not open-minded, they're going to choose the white, because it's familiar. So that push is like, well, we have to be better, or we have to, be at the top. That kind of push is very real, and especially from the first generation parents. And there's so much of this cultural gap, as they talk about, and it's a very explored topic now in many novels. And at that time, Maxine Hong Kingston was a great author, Woman Warrior, a great book, and I related so much to that. So many new movies have come out about this conflict. Joy Luck Club, very famous movie talking about these issues, and so now it's third generation, Chinese, fourth generation. Now it's much better now. It's much better just because the numbers of us have increased, and there's more mixing, intermarriage. I definitely believe it's gotten much better. So. I remember you asked this question. Myth, not so much when we were brought up. They didn't really teach us so much about like Chinese history, and I wish they did actually, but they wanted us to be so American that the most kind of cultural influence that we got from China or Taiwan was just more discipline, and also, yeah, hard work, discipline. And every Chinese New Year, we would all get together with the other Asian families in the town, So it felt, and we had Chinese school also. I forgot about that. And it was just like a bunch of parents who decided to teach the kids some Chinese, So, but in that there was also, I learned some fan dance, and definitely Chinese painting. I remember learning some. So that was that feeling of, there was definitely this other thing that I felt, oh, I should learn more, or it was there, but it was combined with kind of everything our parents wished for us. So it was interesting. They wanted us to be fully American, but they still wanted us to remember there's Chinese food and gatherings and family and language, and so they didn't force us to speak Mandarin, actually. I wish they did, but at least I can hear it. And when I went to Taiwan myself to learn, I learned very quickly. So yeah. So I'm sorry. Does that answer your question? No, well, I don't believe that. Some Americans believe that, but I do believe that people can really start from nothing and achieve so much in America. So that's a beautiful thing. So I believe in the American dream, but I think, yeah, and also America's much more open about women's issues, feminism. It's for a woman to be president of CEO, or I'm sorry, of a company and be the CEO. It's quite common in America now, so that's wonderful. And women being the main income, kind of being the top income earner, and the male not, being lower. That's more and more common. So, yeah, and career women, it's great for women, I think, definitely. But yeah, I think my parents, of course, they believed in the American dream. That's why they moved, and definitely I have felt in the music scene. I've been able to strongly be myself, meaning Taiwanese, Eastern Timorese, and embracing all the Asian arts. I'm so happy that I can do that and express those nuances, cultural nuances, and people like it. So that's I'm so happy about that. That I don't have to be submissive. I don't have to, how do you say, just trying to be as an American, meaning, doing Western music or classical music, or, it's like, I'm a jazz musician, but I'm bringing in all my background and history and my research. That's all inside of it, and it definitely gives it an identity. So it's you can be unique in America and really be yourself. So I think that's great. There's some stereotype about mothers, Asian American mothers, yeah, they come across as being so polite and nice, but then the door closes and at home they're like, that's somewhat true. But Dragon Lady. Um, yeah, that's. I think Asian women are quite strong, and yeah, I mean, of course, there's examples that oh yeah, that's Dragon Lady, but um, I think the women who moved here are incredibly courageous. Or, I'm sorry, moved to America, first generation, so courageous, and so I think for my mom, she's very strong, actually, and she doesn't submit, or she doesn't accept, if my dad disagrees with her, or she fights back. She disagrees outwardly, So I learned a lot from that. So I think that definitely was a change. I think in their own country, the women have to be just this pressure of society. The women, are just more, they're under their husbands, this kind of thing, in many Asian countries. But moving to America, it's almost like everything's equal, So I think it was good. I think it was a good thing for us. Well, being that my partner he's African American, yeah, that's an interesting phenomenon. For me, I only had one Asian boyfriend when I was young, and yeah, I think only one. And he was like half Japanese, half Chinese. But all the other boys, that I was attracted to, yeah, were all Caucasian. And I think it's mainly because I was surrounded by Caucasian people, or African American people. So very few Chinese, very few Asians. So yeah, that really shaped what I was attracted to. And yeah, I don't know. I can't say for everyone, but I think, unfortunately, for the Asian males, they were also they received so much racist treatment, So if we see that, they're so down, and yeah, it's different now. Different now, of course, and but definitely, yeah, for me, I definitely was attracted to other races, yeah. Basically, so many Westerners have a stereotype about Asian music. So it's either, it's Chinese music. It all sounds like Chinese music, and yeah, they know very little about the beauty, actually, of each country in Asia has such amazing traditional music, So it's kind of like, for them, if they just hear it in its pure form, it's still very far to them. But if it comes through me, and if I'm interpreting it, and if I do something new with it, or if I'm inspired by it and do something new, then maybe it's something that it can more easily capture. So I basically want to offer something like a new perspective, and really, again, shatter the stereotypes, just kill the stereotypes, and and expose many new musics to these audiences. And yeah, so many, they've never seen this instrument. They don't know what Taiwanese music is. They don't know what indigenous Taiwanese music, what is that? And as Timorese music, what is East Timorese music? So it's very important for me to bring, it's like through art, it's just bringing people closer to what's so foreign to them. You know, so again, like I said, personal contact, that can kill any tension or stereotype. So that's my intent. My big mission is to just unite people.